Coming off of their loss to the Philadelphia Eagles, the Kansas City Chiefs are looking to have just as good of a season as they did last year, but maybe actually win the Super Bowl this time and get their ring like a certain someone on the team did this past offseason. Now, Patrick Mahomes, I think, is going to have a very good season once again, and it'll kick off on Friday night against the LA Chargers in Sao Paulo. This game, I think, probably could go either way. The Chargers have made a lot of improvements and were a very solid team last year. I just think Kansas City's better, and I don't really see them losing a neutral site game to open up the year. So we have the Chiefs starting 1-0.
And I think a big reason for that too is that this will be the Chargers' first game without Rashawn Slater as their starting tackle, considering he is out for the entire season with an injury he sustained during training camp. And that's a big loss for this team, and I don't think they'll have that figured out early on into the season. So the Chiefs will get the win here. And then it's a Super Bowl rematch between the Chiefs and the Eagles at Arrowhead. I really don't know what to expect from this game. The Eagles are still one of the most complete teams. That defense retained most of their players from last season and probably got a little bit better through the NFL draft. And offensively, you still have Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, and Devonta Smith. Just a really complete team. But the Chiefs did improve a little bit during the offseason, particularly on the offensive line, which was the glaring weakness when they played the Eagles in the Super Bowl. And they got Josh Simmons out of Ohio State to be one of their starting tackles. And if he can be a difference maker earlier on, then this game really could go either way. And it still can go either way if he's not the best rookie tackle that we've ever seen. I think the Eagles still can get the job done here, considering how much they have returning. It's tough to beat the Chiefs at home, but I do think the Eagles are more than capable of doing so. But the Chiefs will get back in the win column with a road trip against the Giants in week 3. This Giants team has a really solid defense, particularly with that front seven after getting Abdul Carter in the NFL draft and already having Dexter Lawrence, who's one of the best interior defensive linemen out there. But the rest of this team, I don't think is capable of beating the Chiefs, particularly on this offense. Yes, Malik Neighbors is very good, but I don't think Russell Wilson is the answer at quarterback. I expect Jackson Dart to come in at some point, but whoever the starting quarterback is in week 3 will not be able to beat the Chiefs, especially in prime time. The Chiefs moved to 2-1.
Then we have a really good matchup with the Chiefs and the Ravens, and Kansas City gets the home field advantage. I do think that's going to be a big key in this game. Surprisingly, it's not a primetime matchup. Neither was that Eagles game, though. Yet somehow the Giants was. Make that one make sense. And I think this is going to be a really close game, as we do typically see from the Chiefs and Ravens. In my opinion, Kansas City doesn't necessarily have an advantage on either side of the football. I think the Ravens probably have the better defense, and the offense really could go either way. Arguably, it could also be the Ravens, but somehow the Chiefs just figure out how to win these games. Coaching is a big factor. You got Patrick Mahomes. The Ravens have Lamar Jackson. Not a huge difference there, in my opinion. So I think it really, really could go either way, but we're going to take the home team here, and the Chiefs move to 3-1. Another primetime game against a bad team on the road as they go play the Jaguars. This one on Monday night. And I do not see Jacksonville being able to win this game. They made some improvements this offseason. You got Travis Hunter in the NFL draft, the first two-way player that the NFL has seen in a very, very long time. And Trevor Lawrence is doing a decent job, but I just don't think that there's quite enough pieces here for the Jaguars to start competing. So we got the Chiefs moving to 4-1 in this game.
Back-to-back primetime games, though, this time against a team actually worthy of a primetime slot, and that is the Detroit Lions. Even though this team has lost both their coordinators and Ben Johnson on the offense and Aaron Glenn on the defense to head coaching positions, this team is still very, very good. Jared Goff at quarterback, a dynamic running back duo of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, a really star-studded receiving core of Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, and Sam Laporta behind one of the better offensive lines, even with some of the departures that they've had. And defensively, you're welcoming back Aiden Hutchinson and a lot of other players that dealt with injuries last year. The Lions easily could be just as good as they were last season during the regular season. This game really could go either way, but I'm going to lean Patrick Mahomes in this big game. I think the Lions will struggle a little bit in some of these bigger games with the loss of both of those coordinators. Dan Campbell's still a phenomenal head coach, but losing both of your coordinators is a huge task to fill. And I don't think the Lions will see a ton of success early on in the season against some of these better teams, so they will fall to the Chiefs here. So Raiders the following weekend. This is a team we're actually fairly high on as they acquired Geno Smith during the offseason, drafted Ashton Genty, and already have Brock Bowers, who is one of the best rookies from last year's class. This is a really good Raiders offense and one that can compete with the Chiefs. And defensively, you still have Max Crosby, who is one of the best defensive ends in the NFL. I expect the Raiders to compete here, even if it is at Arrowhead, but the Chiefs are still the better team. They'll get the win here and move to 6-1 before a tough two-game stretch with the Commanders and Bills.
And the first of those two games is also going to be in prime time, their fifth prime time matchup of the year so far. And I think the Commanders are still going to have a really good team this year. Some people are expecting a fall off. I think they absolutely have the ability to make the playoffs. Jaden Daniels is going to have another really good season. Will they beat the Chiefs on the road? I don't think they can do it in prime time. Kansas City is a really, really good team. They're going to be able to get this win and extend the win streak to 6 games, but that's going to be in jeopardy as they go on the road to face the Bills. The reigning MVP, Josh Allen, as controversial as it may have been, is a really good quarterback, and the Bills have an incredible offense. This will be a absolute shootout, and I think that this is where we finally see this Chiefs win streak come to an end. The Bills are too good of a team to lose this one in the regular season, and it also sets them up perfectly to lose the rematch in the postseason, as they always do. After the bye week is another road trip that's also not going to be particularly easy for the Chiefs. The Broncos also had a really good season last year. Bo Nix, an impressive rookie year. And I expect him, kind of like Jaden Daniels, to continue that success into this season. The Broncos are some people's picks to maybe make a dark horse run at the playoffs again, potentially even further into the playoffs. I think that they have a chance to win this game, especially because they're at home and maybe split the season series with the Chiefs. So we are going to take Denver to win this game at home. So a little losing streak starting up here for the Chiefs.
I think a big reason the Broncos have a shot in this game is their defense. You have the reigning DPOI and Pat Surtain on your team, and I think he can be an issue for Patrick Mahomes and this Chiefs offense, no matter how good it is. He is a game wrecker, and it's always a tough ask to get a win on the road when you're playing at Mile High. They get the Colts the following week, though, and the Colts made a couple improvements defensively, getting Charvarius Ward to add to the secondary. And the defense overall is fairly solid, but this offense is going to be interesting, especially considering that the week 1 starter is Daniel Jones. And I have very little faith in this Colts offense if Daniel Jones remains their quarterback for the entire season. And that faith doesn't increase by very much if Anthony Richardson comes in. I really don't have a lot of faith in this Colts team. They might actually be the worst team in the AFC South, despite the lack of strength that the Titans have on defense. Chiefs should easily get this win here at home. And then they have a Thanksgiving game against America's team on the road against the Dallas Cowboys. And this game could have been a lot more interesting until recently when Jerry Jones made the stupidest decision of his very long career as the owner of the Cowboys and traded away Micah Parsons, one of the best defensive players, not only in the NFL today, but one of the best defensive players we have seen in the NFL's history. This Cowboys offense is going to be fairly good with Dak Prescott, George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, but the running back room leaves much to be desired with Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders in the backfield, both aging running backs. And defensively, outside of the loss of Micah Parsons, the secondary is still fairly good, and they have some guys returning from injury. But this is not a game I think the Cowboys can win anymore. The Chiefs should roll and get a win on Thanksgiving, moving them to 9-3.
Then it's another primetime matchup. This one with the Houston Texans and the Chiefs get it at home. I think the Texans are going to have a very, very good season once again, but their offensive line is a major concern. And I think when you're going against some of the best teams in the NFL, that's where it's going to really matter that you can win the line of scrimmage. I think the Texans are one of the best teams in the NFL when it comes to every other position group. They have a really good offense, especially if Joe Mixon can be healthy by this point. They have one of the best defenses in the entire NFL, but the fact that they don't have a very good offensive line is a fact that very well could cost them this game against the Chiefs. I think that that's what cost them the game in the playoffs last season as well, when CJ Stroud just didn't have enough time to throw the football and was getting sacked way too much. Kansas City will do very similar things in this game and move to 10-3. Then a home game with the Chargers. So they never had to go on the road to play at Los Angeles this year, which is kind of nice for the Chiefs. They won the first game, which was the neutral site game. But I think by this point in the season, the Chargers have figured a few things out. We've seen regular season Justin Herbert is a really good quarterback, only throwing 4 interceptions in the regular season. We won't talk about what he did in the postseason. And I think that this Chargers team absolutely can win a game against the Chiefs this year. They didn't win the first one, so we do have them winning the second one and splitting that season series, dropping Kansas City to 10-4.
The road trip against the Titans the next week, and this should be a game that the Chiefs easily win. The Titans just have very little on this defense, and even though offensively, I think Cam Ward has a decent receiving core to utilize in his rookie year, it's not going to be enough when you're going up against Patrick Mahomes and this Chiefs offense. Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice are very, very good weapons for him to use. Not to mention that Travis Kelce is looking to rebound this season after one of his worst statistical years last season. And maybe getting engaged to Taylor Swift will help him out. Maybe he'll snap out of that funk that he was in last season and actually have a very productive year. So Chiefs get the win, get their 11th win. Then it is a Christmas time matchup against the Broncos. And Jonah already mentioned it. The Broncos got the win at home earlier on. The Chiefs aren't going to get swept by the Broncos this year. It's a very good Broncos team, but in game 2 at Arrowhead, especially on Christmas, you have to give the poster child of the NFL a huge Christmas present, and Patrick Mahomes will get the win over Denver here. And then they close out the season with the Raiders. And as we talked about it, we're pretty high on this Raiders team. We do think they can be fairly good this season, but I do think the Chiefs are just a more complete team. I think there are still some questions on the Raiders' offensive and defensive lines outside of Max Crosby, not to mention a secondary that is a little bit young. I do think the Chiefs can get the win here and bookend their season with a win and finishing it off 13-4.
This is 2 more losses than we saw in the regular season for the Chiefs last year. But there's enough tough games on this schedule that I think they are going to drop a few. And when you combine that with the fact that their division is getting better, I think it makes sense that we will not see another 15-2 season for Kansas City this year. I think the absolute worst case scenario is 9-8. And I don't even know what would have to go wrong for this to happen. But there's a lot of 50-50 games that the Chiefs would have to figure out a way to lose. It would probably include splitting the season series with the Raiders as well. The ceiling going to be 14-3. I still think it's one game worse than last year. It's not to say the Chiefs are a worse team than they were last season, but I just think that they won't be able to replicate that same level of success that we saw. They got arguably kind of lucky in a few of those regular season games last year. I don't think that carries over to this season. The Vegas over-under is at 11.5. just slightly favoring the under, actually. I think there's still a really good chance that we see Kansas City go over this total.
The biggest reason we had this floor just one game above 500 is this schedule is really, really difficult considering it has the Bills, Ravens, Commanders, Lions all on that schedule, not to mention playing the Chargers and Broncos twice in the same year. And if we get a similar offensive output from the Chiefs that we saw last season, Mahomes having one of his worst years statistically, same thing with Travis Kelce. And despite that, they still made the Super Bowl. But I think if that continues, then the Chiefs can be in trouble. But addressing that offensive line over the offseason was a huge bonus for this team. And I do think they are capable of winning some of those big games, especially against teams like the Commanders and Ravens and Lions. But it's really going to be difficult for them to repeat the same amount of success that they had last season, given how difficult that schedule is. But they will still be right in the thick of it for a Super Bowl title once again. So thank you guys for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more of our content, and we will see you in the next video.